Good morning. It's Tom Padula from TomPadulaTV on YouTube and Insegna Booksellers. And this morning we're doing world history, and it's Thursday, the 19th of May 2022. I'm going to give myself the 5 minutes to go through what I'm going to do today. And big day today, Alexander the Great. We finally got to a really important person in the ancient world, and together with the other emperors of Persia, he was a big one, young man. He only died at 33, unbelievable. But that's life, I suppose. He did quite a lot, and he continued the work of his father, Philip. So that's the first thing that we're going to do. Now, secondly, we're going to concentrate on continue with the history or the realities of Indigenous people before the arrival of Captain Arthur Phillip. So it's before the invasion. But invasions have occurred throughout history, and this was no different. And every time anyone gets invaded, things change. But there is a negative part, and there's also a positive part, in the sense that the world of the indigenous people then was enlarged, but with tragic consequences for a lot of the people. And that is something we must remember, but not have big hurt inside. Continue the hurt that has to be left behind, because that's what happened. Therefore, we must remember, but memories can have different effects on people. Some people take it to heart and they never forget, and therefore they want to take revenge. Now, taking revenge may look like justice, but it does destroy the future of a people. And it's a real problem in humanity as a whole. So learning to forgive, but not to forget. I don't forget anything, but forgiveness has to be part of one's own philosophy. Now, why do I say this? Because there is a real problem here in terms of how do you get around it? How do you manage it? For example, today I'm going to show you some, I'm going to continue with my, I took a little holiday a few weeks ago on the Mornington Peninsula, and I'm going to continue with showing you Sorrento, the town, and also then we'll go further down, but I won't talk about it now. It'll be obvious when I show it. Also, thank you to Banjo Patterson. We have a big poem today for him. And basically, this world history section, this particular live program of mine, presentation, lesson, whatever you want to call it, gives us the idea that really there's so much that happens in history, and are we learning from it? One of the solutions to some of our human problems, rather than just describing what happened in the past, how do you learn from all this? It's hard, not easy. And we have an example today, but we've had examples since World War II and before, about wars that have begun in various parts of the world. Now, they're nasty affairs. It would be better to fight the wars for peace. In other words, use our soldiers and our systems to help humanity rather than destroying each other. And I was thinking that perhaps humanity needs the universe in order to have the greater challenges for the future. So space exploration and settlements in other parts of the universe, in our solar system, may be a way of uniting our great humanity. Because we have grown as humans from the early part of the 20th century to now, from 2+ billion people to 8 billion people. And we are able, there's enough food there for everyone, provided that it gets distributed. But some people miss out because, again, greed exists amongst humans. There's a lot of, and my reading of Dante Alighieri about the Inferno, then I got to Purgatorio, that's helped me a lot as well. And then I look at the languages that are spoken in the world. And I'm glad to say that yesterday I had my first French class at the University of the Third Age in Baldwin, Dipdene. They called U3A of Dipdene. So that's it for now. I'll start with Alexander the Great and we'll continue. Okay, so this is it. Alexander the Great, here we come. Now, who was this guy? I want to show you something because I think it's good that we get an idea of the person. This is a person, and we'll go through the times of history. Look at this. He went from here, from Greece. Look at his, through Turkey, old Anatolia, the Syrian Empire, Armenia, Mesopotamia, Syria, and he went to Iran. He went actually to India as well. Then he came back and he wanted to establish his capital in Babylon. But unfortunately, he got sick and died at the age of 33. Okay, he also went to Egypt, as you see, Alexandria there. He actually settled Alexandria and called Alexandria after his own name. I didn't know that. Did you? Well, there you are. It's an interesting part of history. And of course, you can use the online available resources in order to get into it. Much more than I can show you today. But today I'll do a bit of a summary of it, thanks to some of the textbooks. So, okay, that's it. Look how big it is. Anna Paula, oh, welcome. Welcome. Here we go. That's it. That's it now. That was the empire that Alexander the Great actually established. And let's see what happened to him and to his dad. Okay, so Philip of Macedon, in the mountains to the north of Greece, lived the Macedonians, a half-barbarous people who spoke a dialect akin to Greek. So they spoke a dialect, a local language. That's what we're talking about, local languages. And then the written part becomes more the state language. In 360 BC, that's the 4th century before the birth of Christ, there came to the throne of Macedonia King Philip, who admired Greek civilization so much that he engaged the great philosopher Aristotle as a tutor for his son Alexander. So Alexander was taught by Aristotle. And even then, the democracy of Athens, the Greeks had already developed quite substantially in their civilization. Now, what happened here? The Macedonian phalanx is like military troops. Philip was a military genius who trained his soldiers in such a way that infantry and cavalry combining, the whole army worked as one efficient and almost irresistible machine. He won every battle. In particular, he and his men created the Macedonian phalanx, a small compact body of foot soldiers fighting shoulder to shoulder and armed with long spears, which projected from the crevices in the almost solid wall formed by the large shields carried by each man. So they carried a long spear and a large shield. Until they had learned to copy these formations, other armies of the time were no match for the Macedonians, and by 336 BC, Philip had made himself overlord of nearly all the important Greek states. So he became, he actually was able to conquer the rest of the tribes, because don't forget, the Greeks, they loved their own local state, local villages. They weren't cities, they were villages, and they had lands around it. They weren't, they were easily conquered, really, by someone with a good plan and a good army. And Philip, that's what Philip did. His plan was to lead the whole of Greece against the still mighty Persian Empire. And we've talked about when we did the Persian Empire, we saw that the Greeks stopped them. Just as he was almost ready to march to the Hellespont, he was murdered, and the 20-year-old Alexander was left to finish the work begun at the Battle of Marathon. Again, these are details that we need to go into more and more, and I can't do that today. And really, this is only an introduction, presentation, rather than the final thing about the importance of the work of Alexander the Great. He was truly a great young man. Alexander defeats Darius III at the Battle of Issus, 333 BC, before Christ. The story of Alexander the Great's amazing series of military triumphs is too long to be told in detail. Here, whilst we're doing this, we just can't do it. But, I'll be able to show you eventually some of the books. I have a whole collection of books on Alexander the Great, and one of them in particular shows in detail where he went and what he did. The decisive battle was fought in 333 BC at the head of the Gulf of Issus, presumably Issus near the sea, river, etc., which forms the northeastern corner of the Mediterranean Sea. And there must be, rivers going into it as well. So it makes, so that's the Issus, the river Issus. They didn't know before this, can't remember. The Persian host was completely routed, and Darius III, the last of the great Persian kings, fled headlong from the field. So they lost. The great Persian Empire lost against the Alexander the Great's might. Unbelievable. Alexander conquers a vast empire. The Persian Empire lay at his feet, and for the next 10 years, Alexander led his men across it, defeating every army bold enough to stand against him. He defeated all of them. The map on this page, there's a map here, conquered in turn Phoenicia, Palestine, Egypt, Assyria, Babylonia, Persia itself, Media, and even far off northern India. They had created a vaster empire than the world had ever seen, but a great number of them, like the young king, never saw their beloved Hellas again. So a lot of people, fought in the army. They did not go back to Macedonia because the king was dead. I'll show you what he did. Here we are, see? There's an old book, of course, Macedonia. And he went to Egypt, and then he went Euphrates, Babylon there, Persia, and Kush, the Hindu part, up to the Indus River. Interesting. And don't forget, this was all done on foot, on horse, whatever. No bikes, no cars, no buses, nothing. So there you are. but dies at Babylon 323 BC. So, at the age of only 33, Alexander died of a fever in the ancient palace of Nebuchadnezzar at Babylon. He had settled there because he sort of won against the emperor, the king of Persia, and that was it. But what happened when he died? The Italians have got a saying, il pesce puzza dalla testa. The fish smells from the head. In other words, when you lose your head, like in government, we're going to go to elections on Saturday. We better elect the right person. But we're lucky in democracy because we get another chance in 3-4 years' time to get rid of them if they're no good. So then the other party comes back and, things change slow. It's an imperfect system, democracy. Not as precise as in a dictatorship or monarchy where there's a class system very well defined. And the people are always kept down below, but they're looked after if they're looked after. They have to do exactly what they're told. You can't express your own opinion because you can't go against the king. Otherwise you lose your head. But that's what used to happen before. And even now, people, the spies, this and that. There's a lot of that going on. It shouldn't be there, but it is. Well, rapid collapse of Alexander's empire. On his death, Alexander's principal generals each seized a part of the vast empire. So they divided up. Says, well, we conquered it. Our men died, so I'm the boss here now. That's it. Fighting soon broke out amongst these old comrades in arms. And the empire of the great Macedonian thus fell apart almost as quickly as it had come into being. On a map looks good, but in reality is different. Got to look at it. Close by. Nevertheless, Greek civilization and the Greek language lived on around the Eastern Mediterranean for hundreds of years after Alexander's death. So just because the British came to Australia in 1788, and doesn't mean that they're not here still. The people who never left, didn't go back, they're here. They become Australian. So the land ends up owning you. We own the land, Europeans, etc. The governments throughout history, they've sort of, in Europe, have divided the land, and in Asia too. This belongs to this, and that belongs to that. The tribe, this and that. It sort of keeps on going, that problem. It is a problem. But the people then who rule leave a mark. And that's what the Greeks did in the past. So the Greek generals and their armies, they stayed around, they married the locals, etc., etc. And the rest is history, as they say. Greek influence remains. In Egypt particularly, Greek influence was strong, especially in and near Alexandria, the great seaport at the western mouth of the Nile, which Alexander had founded and named. Okay, and let's not forget that we've also got then Carthage further up. So, great civilizations sort of meet around the coastal areas of the Mediterranean Sea. They establish colonies, and then Rome comes to being. They fight Carthage, they conquer the rest, and Rome lasted quite a long time as an empire. So this one here was formed, bang. But in South America with the Maya, the Aztecs, the same sort of thing happened. They lasted for hundreds and thousands of years, some of them, but eventually they disappeared. Hundreds of years is a better way of describing it. Now, look what happens. Universities and libraries at Alexandria. In the course of time, Alexandria became the most important centre of learning in the ancient world. more celebrated even than Athens for the university and its great libraries containing over 700,000 papyrus rolls. Learned men from all over the civilized world went there to study, just as students today go to Oxford or Cambridge or Melbourne University or the great universities of America and the rest of the world, where they've got in Italy and France. All these universities are great learning centres. But the old Library of Alexandria, in about 400, after the establishment of Christianity as a state religion for the Roman Empire, the ideologues, the people, some of the people who became then like, imbued with this fervour that we should only have one God, etc., etc. So it's the best way of doing it for the next generation, get rid of all the knowledge of the past, bang, 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 and then we won't have a problem. So they burned down the library of Alexandria. It was terrible. But that's what happened. And there's a film about it, very interesting. I've seen the film. The rest of it you'd have to study. The first steam engine, amongst those papers in Alexandria, you get the first steam engine. An ancient book written in Alexandria about the 1st century AD by a Greek scientist named Hero describes a steam turbine that was made at the university. The first steam engine seems to have worked well enough, but it was never developed and put to practical use. Many historians think that this was because men in ancient times felt no need of mechanical power as human labour was so cheap. Oh, it's just, this guy talking about it. It's not, they were, things come and go. Some things don't develop straight away, even after they've been discovered. It takes a long time. So I'm not quite sure whether I would say something, put it that way. All the heavy work, even among the Greeks, was done by slaves. And a slave cost much less than a good horse, let alone a complicated machine. Where you put the slave to work, they pick up the olives for you, they have to work in the fields, blah, 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 at home. So they cost less in the long run. You pay, but if they're good, they actually are a big one. But we don't believe in that anymore. We believe that every human being has the right to live in peace, happiness, and in work and everything else. That's, our contribution. The pharaohs at Alexandria. Alexandria was also famous for its pharaohs or lighthouses. The lighthouse, not the pharaohs of Egypt. Okay. Or like one of the 7 wonders of the world, the one in Alexandria, apparently. As you can see from the next page was into. So here we are. This is the great lighthouse of Alexandria. There it is. 1326 AD. It stood up for almost 1,500 years, and then they destroyed it. How's that? Oh, there was Alexander the Great there, his face. Alexander was very handsome, yeah? Big boy, very tough, physically and intellectually. So, the square, it was informed between the square temple towers of the Babylonians and our modern church spires. Okay. Now, the last bit about Alexandria, about the Greeks. Our knowledge of Egyptian history due to the Greeks. Okay. Finally, we should remember that if it were not for the Greeks, the whole story of the development of civilization in ancient Egypt would be a closed book to us. After Alexander's death, Egypt was ruled by the descendants of Ptolemy, one of his generals, until it was conquered by the Romans. The famous Rosetta Stone, which provided the key to an understanding of Egyptian hieroglyphics, was really a public notice erected by the Greek government of the Ptolemies. Naturally, it was written in the official government language, Greek, and in the language of the subject people, Egyptian. Just as official notice today in British colonies, Malays, are usually printed in both English and, in other words, when there's a colony and the colony is established, both the language that's imported by the rulers and the local language are hand in hand, because you can't control every single family in the colony that you've conquered. You can't do it. That's why it takes so long for things to work themselves out. So that was Alexander the Great. There's a lot more that I will come to eventually about the great people of history. I've got plenty of time, so this history thing will continue with me because I'm interested in it. And that's the passion. Without that, and a commitment. You take on a commitment, and I want to continue until I can. When I can't, I'll say, I'm not doing this, but the podcasts remain. It's 11:50, I've still got time. This was our old friend here, Benja Patterson. But before him, I've got before the invasion. I'm just going to read a little bit here. Okay? So, a baby was not named at birth, but was called by its relationship to the other members of the community. A father or mother would call it my child. Older children said little sister or little brother, and so on. Among the Tiwi, naming the child was a most serious matter. It was the responsibility of the father, who consulted many people before deciding. No two Tiwi people could have the same name at the same time. If the father decided to give his child his own name, then he literally gave it away, so that the father could no longer be called by this name. A name belonged to someone. It could not be used freely by other people or shouted across the camp. For everyday use, each person had an ordinary name, a nickname that described his appearance or something that happened to him. This was the name commonly used. Okay, so that was the name. Naming was the responsibility of the father. I'm going to leave it there because I want to read the Benja Patterson, and next week I'll continue. I'll do a bit more on childhood on this. Okay? So that's that. And now on Riley's Run. The roving, by Benja Patterson, here, A.B. Patterson. The roving breezes come and go on Riley's Run. The sleepy river murmurs low, and far away one dimly sees beyond the stretch of forest trees. Beyond the foothills, dusk and dun, the rangers sleeping in the sun on Riley's Run. This many years since first I came to Riley's Run, more years than I would care to name, since I, a stripling, used to ride for miles and miles at Kylie's side, the while in stirring tones he told the stories of the days of old on Riley's Run. I see the old bush homestead now on Riley's Run, just nestled down beneath the brow of one small ridge above the sweep of River Flat, where willows sweep and jasmine flowers and roses bloom. The air was laden with perfume on Riley's Run. We lived the good old station life on Riley's Run. With little thought of care or strife, old Riley seldom used to roam. He liked to make the run his home. The swagman never turned away with empty hand at close of day from Riley's Run. Welcome to Filippo Castrignano, all the way from Puglia, Monopoli. Oh, I don't know where you are now. Okay, sto leggendo una poesia di Benjo Patterson, Filippo, ma è in inglese, non ci posso fare niente. Let me continue. We kept a racehorse now and then on Riley's Run, and neighbouring stations brought their men to meeting where the sport was free. And dainty ladies came to see their champions ride. With laugh and song, the old house rang the whole night long on Riley's Run. The station hands were friends, I wot, on Riley's Run, a reckless, merry-hearted lot, all splendid riders, and they knew the boss was kindness through and through. Old Riley always stood their friend, and so they served him to the end on Riley's Run. So Riley was the old man of the station. But droughts and losses came apace to Riley's Run. What's new in Australia, huh? Droughts and losses. Till ruin started him in the face, stared him in the face. He toiled and toiled while he lived the light. He dreamed of overdrafts at night. At length, because he could not pay, his bankers took the stock away from Riley's Run. Okay, so if you can't pay, they come and take it away from you. And they did on Riley's Run. Old Riley stood and saw them from Riley's Run. The well-bred cattle marching slow, his stockmen mates for many a day, they wrung his hand and went away. Too old to make another start, old Riley died of broken heart. Oh, che peccato, eh? What a pity. He died of broken heart, on Riley's Run. So in his run, Riley died. The owner lives in England now of Riley's Run. He knows a racehorse from a cow, but that is all he knows of stock. His chiefest care is how to dock expenses, and he sends from town to cut the shearers' wages down on Riley's Run. A new boss arrives and he cuts the expenses. There are no neighbours anywhere near Riley's Run. The hospitable homes are bare, the garden's gone, for no pretence must hinder cutting down expense. The homestead that we held so dear contains a half-paid overseer on Riley's Run. All life and sport and hope have died on Riley's Run. No longer there the stockmen ride, for sour-faced boundary riders creep on mongrel horses after sheep. Through ranges were at racing speed, old Riley used to wheel the lead on Riley's Run. There runs a lane for 30 miles through Riley's Run. On either side of the herbage smiles, but wretched travelling sheep must pass without a drink or blade of grass, that though long lane of death and shame, the weary drovers curse the name of Riley's Run. The name itself is changed of late of Riley's Run. They call it Chandos Park Estate. The lonely swagman through the dark must hump his swag past Chandos Park. The name is English, don't you see? The old name sweeter sounds to me of Riley's Run. I cannot guess what fate will bring to Riley's Run. For chances come and changes ring. I scarcely think I will always be locked up to suit an absentee. And if he lets it out in farms, his tenant soul will carry arms on Riley's Run. So it's a sad story. Riley's Run, we used to be a happy place, and then it sort of, the end arrived. Dead. And you finished. So thank you very much to Benjo Patterson. Non lo posso spiegare in italiano, questo qui. Magari un giorno forse potremmo leggere Benjo Patterson e fare le spiegazioni. Okay, so I said that in Italian because Filippo is in Puglia, Italy, and he doesn't speak English, but he's learning it. Beautiful. Okay, now, well, we've done the history part, did a little bit of childhood about how you name a child before the invasion, who was responsible for that. And now we are going to go to where we normally do. Let's see if we can. December, there's always a problem here. Oh, I've got it back. I just have to write in my numbers here, and then it should come up. Unless I get it wrong. Here we go. Now, last week I told you I went to for a holiday. Here we are. This is now in Sorrento. This is Sorrento in on the Monitor Peninsula. Ecco Sorrento. We continue from last week. So if you go to the podcast, you'll get last week. I showed the the Sorrento. In Sorrento, you can go with a ferry from Sorrento to Queenscliff. Okay, so here we are. This was at the beginning. Here we are. That's where I was last week. Okay, Sorrento, on the Mornington Peninsula, not in Campania, but in Melbourne. Melbourne area. And this was part of the Warrarung Kulin Nation. And there's nothing there that mentions underneath here the original name of the people who lived in this area from 65,000 years before. And did they always live there, those Warrarung people? Who knows? So here we are. Okay. That's the facilities right next to it, and there's a big park, and you can see the water there as well, okay, of the bay. And this is, then I went up, this is the shopping centre, okay, beautiful, bit of shopping, didn't go astray, that was lovely. So today I'm going to show you, this part of Victoria, which is quite beautiful, really. There we are. This is a new hotel, or, they renovated it, etc. And I'll be going in. There we are. Like, nice, an outdoor area. And I walked in, and there was a guy making a pizza. Here, Mario. Let me see. And of course I had to have a picture. That's a selfie. I always love that. And he was making the pizza, but he was making it, but then I had a chat with him. Oh, there it is. Sorry. There it is. Ecco che Mario prepara la pizza, vedi? Resta buttare anche in aria. E qui al continente di Sorrento sono entrato e Mario mi dice: puoi fare quello che vuoi, non ti preoccupare. Italian. E questo qua poi ci mettiamo la canzone alla pizza e stiamo a posto, no? E non lo guardo io. Da quanto tempo sei qua, Mario? Io? Un po' di tempo, solo poco, va? Solo poco qui. 3 settimane qui. Hai avuto il tuo business a Melbourne o hai sempre fatto pizza? Pizze, cucinare, un po' di tutto. L'emigrante si dà da fare. Spero che ci vediamo di nuovo. Ok, ciao ciao. Buona giornata. Ok, grazie Mario. See, that was me. I asked for his permission, of course, and this was the other area where they got the orders for outside living. That's the place, and this is just going out. There's an outdoor and indoor area. The indoor one, how beautiful is that? Lovely. That's the outdoor area of this particular place. I was impressed. Apparently it's just been open for about 4 or 5 months. After renovations, of course. And then I went to buy some fruit and vegetables, and I said, "Can I take a picture?" There you are. I like local people doing work. I always love that. Now, this is now the next day. The next day I went down. I went up, and this is called Sullivan's Bay, the first British settlement here. This is, it was here at Sorrento in October 1803 that the first British colony was established 32 years before Melbourne was founded. There it is, see? And this was the first settlement. Now again, there were no mention of Aboriginal people here. They could have some of these historical things about the Aborigines, and I hope they do take it up, because I think the history has to go back to 65,000 years. So we want to know how people lived before that. But as I said, the Aborigines were nomadic people, and they established a Neolithic existence in some parts. But they're established within a particular region, if you like. This was the ship that came to Australia in 1803. And this is the captain here, there. And this is Matthew Flinders. Those are the two people, and these are the ships. So again, all this historical, people of historical interest, but you need to do that. So people who rule, etc., they want other people to remember them. Why not? Matthew Flinders, 1776, 1814. So there you are. Hard life, 24 plus 14. He died at 38. Where a settlement be made at Port Phillip, the entrance could easily be defended. So, and he said that the area can be defended if you settle it, and then you can defend it from marauding ships, from the pirates, if you like. Okay, these are the other vessels. Lady Nelson, the first convicts, Lieutenant Governor David Collins established his camp here on the 14th of October 1803. Collins named the place Sullivan Bay after the Under-Secretary for War and Colonies, John Sullivan. So, how would you say something like it? One of the Aboriginal leaders, if you had a picture of him, you could say this person here was in charge of the Wurundjeri people, the Wurra, the various. Antonio Dancy, welcome. I'm doing a bit of Australian history. This is I went to the Mornington Peninsula, and near Sorrento there's some historical parts. Now this is the work that the original colonisers did. Now let's not forget the Aboriginals here did not build anything. They they lived a Neolithic life, nomadic life, within their own tract of land, within the land allocated to their tribe, but, they didn't do the work, say, that the Europeans managed to do. And these are the convict gangs. These are the people who came from England because they had done something wrong, and they were punished by sending them overseas. Now, we can do that with humans now. The people we don't want, we can send to Mars or to Neptune or to the moon. And then they can establish a colony there in the universe. You don't want them on Earth, you put them up there. So these are some of the early buildings. And you notice the guards, always, they were pretty cruel at that time. Hard work, they are, but not for the people who rule. They rule. The people who have to work are the prisoners. No place for a colony. Somebody said that, whatever, but then they changed their mind, obviously. More of this, more pictures, again, and this is what it is. See, the Aborigines and the colonisers, they talk to each other. And of course, the convicts were, and the soldiers, pretty rough. Early settlers' graves, there is Sullivan's Bay. By the end of 1804, the Sullivan Bay settlement had ceased to exist. David Collins had transferred his people to the Derwent River, found in the modern-day city of Hobart in Tasmania. So they went from here back, they went to Tasmania. Okay, and that was it. Then what happens here? John Pascoe Faulkner, son of a convict at Sullivan Bay, organised the sailing of the Enterprise, which landed a small group of settlers at the Yarra River on the 28th of August 1835. So the start of the people went back to Derwent, came back with the Enterprise, and they settled Victoria. They settled around Melbourne. Okay, this was pioneering country. By 1850, its tiny and isolated population was involved in lime burning and fishing, supplying Melbourne with building materials and seafood. There's a bit of history here. Interesting. Abandonment, and this is the place. This is more of the beach area that I visited. Here. That's where my car was over there, because I sort of, wanted to walk. And there's a pier there as well. The boats, you can see a lot of boats. These are the boats. There you are. Now, this was another area where they had this historical information on poles, available for tourists to say this is where we are. Okay, so, but again, no information about who lived here before the invasion, before these people. So it's up to the Indigenous people now to say, okay, let's write some local history here and put it besides the other ones, and that would unify the country in a way. Because once you recognise the past and the future and the immediate past, you can, link everything together. It's a good idea. There we are. Anthony Albanese has been saying he wants to unify the country. Well, spend some money. Even Morrison will do the same. Whoever becomes Prime Minister, either of you can take credit for putting up some of the first Aboriginal, historical information about all areas within Australia. Now that would be a very big thing for the country. More of it. First British settlement in Victoria. And this was the area. Look how beautiful it is. Of course, I had to take a picture. They're lovely pictures, the selfies. What happens here? I say something. What do I say? All along the Mornington Peninsula, all these beautiful spaces here, there are very few people at this time of the year, and it's very enjoyable just walking around. And especially for me, I love to do a bit of filming, etc. And yeah, this way here I capture whatever there is au naturel. So I hope you enjoy it as well when you look at this online in my programs on world history, especially world history, I think is the one. And what else is there? Yes, that's the basic one, because with history, what you get is I feel for places like this as they were before anyone was here. And then you can see how much work there has been over the years and how Australia has benefited from the colonisation, even though it was an invasion. Now, the question is, would you like to return to the way it was, or would you like it to remain the way it is and improve it even more so that people can use it? It's an age-old problem with nomadic, Neolithic, and city life. Sort of. That's what I'm finding. Even going back to our wars now, those were old wars. The treatment of people, of the convicts, was horrendous. And will they be compensated, or their families? I don't know. Bigger issue than that, that's for sure. But worthwhile reflecting on this very special time here from Rosebud to Sorrento at the end of April 2022. And that was it. Of course I wanted to show the pier, small pier, but still it helps with the boating. There it is there. How nice is that? It's with you can see it's still, you can do a lot with all this. It was a bit cold because, it was early May. There's another one here. Let me see. There's a cool breeze right now. And the people are out in the bay there. Boats. Do I lose my hat? That's a good thought. Oh, the sun is shining. That's good. That's very good. Okay. All right. That's it. Look at that. Beautiful, huh? It was cold. That's why I sort of made that comment. And I love the fact that I had the picture there. See? Good one. Shadow. And this was, gee, I should have had my map with me. There must be something here. Dental surgery. Blairgowrie. There it is. This is the small place, Blairgowrie. Okay? Or Blairgowrie. No, Blairgowrie. That's it. Another little town with shopping centre and presumably some houses, etc. behind. People established their presence in this area for the summer holidays. There it is. I went in to buy a few things and then I continued. There you are. I don't think this is Blairgowrie. What's this? No, has nothing to do with. Oh gosh! See, if you don't write it down, you don't remember. Boringyong bullock fishing. Oh, that's good. Finally, Boringyong bullock fishing. Back in time, there was no bay, as the area was low-lying grassland, where the Birrarung Yarra River people wound its way through the... Oh, well, they've done it here. But I'd like to see more of this. I like to see more of this sort of historical part of Aboriginal people, of the Indigenous, the First Nation people, more alongside of the British one or the Australian ones, whatever. Beautiful place, Australia. Look at that. Look at this, my gosh. On my way back from Sorrento, I stopped at Blackberry and now Rye, and look at the sand, unbelievable. Just such a beautiful place. So this is another place called Rye. It's a bigger town. I really wonder visiting these places. In a lifetime, one is always busy. Take time off. Important. Yeah, I've always sort of worked, during a lifetime. You could enjoy these, but you don't always do that when you're working and you're involved in a lot of things, in business, this and that, schools, teaching. There we are. Love this place. That's Rye. Children's, see, beautiful. It's a really good summer place for families as well, young families. The sandy, beautiful. Loved it. I actually, on the day I didn't go in. Look at that. Look at the sand here. Amazing, look at this. Pleasure. You have such sand. This is Rye. If you want to swim and have sand under your body, this is the place to go. Right, so that's another one. Wait a minute. Come on, Tom. More of Rye, just, between the shopping centre and the sea. And it's opposite. I love this one here. Look at that. That's right on the highway. Beautiful. Oh, well done. And that was just a picture, okay. More of that. From the back. It's a nice picture. I'll enjoy this picture here. And the barbecue, of course, family. There you are, a rubbish bin, nice, that's a nice area. And the facilities, of course. I love those trees. And the birds, seagulls everywhere. The minute they see food, they chase you. Barbecue. Look at the birds following the guy. Yeah, you want to feed him? You suffer the consequences. And I saw these pictures here. Beautiful, huh? Rye Beach foreshore. There you are. And a bit of history again. and then you'd have to check. A brief history of Rye. Lieutenant John Murray and the Lady Nelson made the first record of the Rye area. The first settler in the southern peninsula was Edward Hobson, who had cattle on the Tutkaruk Run in 1837. Some cattle and sheep properties continue still. Tutkaruk, we go past there, Rye Pier. Look at that. And of course, you know, the bottom part, I haven't had time to read it, but anyway, we'll take it from there. And this was the first settlement. Historic sites, you know, you name it. $1930 Pierce Store and Ride Mechanics, there you are. Yeah, it's beautiful. Protecting Victoria's iconic beaches and coastlines. New works that are being carried out at the moment. Let's have a look here. Oh, the birds. I'm fascinated by them. Obviously, the seagulls want me to film them. Look at them. What a lovely way to live. Ah. True freedom. Yeah. I've done it for you. And two on the... Yeah. There we are. This is it. Rye, ciao. Time to go. The battery need to recharge again. You'll wake up. If I get up now, well, how does it, technically, I don't understand what happened. There it is. So this is it here. With Sorrento, Blairgowrie, Rye. And you got the Sisters, Cameron's Bight, White Cliffs, more local stuff, Bay Trail, Rosebud. And this is where I stayed, here, Browns Road. You know, Rosebud is here, nice big town, Romana, etc. Okay, so that's it's another one of, you know. Today I've done Rosebud and drove to Sorrento, then on the way back I stopped at Blairgowrie and also just before that as well. And then I've stopped at Rye. Well, Capel Sound can wait because I'm going home now. That's it, done for today. All right. Until next. Let me have a look now. I said it was done for today, right? Let me check. Oh, yeah? It was done for today, and then I went home. I went home, and here I suffered these. There, that was some of the food. Those are the olives that from Irene Avenue. The salami, that's it. I think we'll stop there on a good note. And that's it. And then we'll continue next time because there's more to come. Right? Okay. So there we are. I hope that you enjoyed that little trip. It's a good memory. It's good for me to actually show some of this in the world history section because it adds to what we're doing. So we're doing a bit of Australian literature, a little before the invasion. We're making suggestions about including Aboriginal, First Nations people, Indigenous people, their history before the arrival of Captain Arthur Phillip, even Captain Cook. Captain Cook he came and went, but there's quite a bit about him as well. And the Indigenous people have to embrace this as we, people who invaded have to embrace them. Unity comes from this act of generosity towards each other. And I'm hoping that some of this work here will filter through to the right people. Anyway, on that note, I've enjoyed it today in some ways. I'm more relaxed with it all because I know exactly what I want now with the world history, where I'm going with it. It's good. And I want to thank you for those people who've come on today. Antonio Danzi too, thank you very much. You've come on as well. And people during the week, a lot of people during the week are coming on to see the podcasts. Don't forget, you can get them now on the Insegna.com website. You just got to blog, and in the blog section there are 4 sections, and they are all in order for you to watch. Where there's been a bit of a problem, it says video not available. It is available on my Facebook page. All you have to do is click the Facebook page, and the actual lesson podcast comes back on. Okay, so they are all there, in fact. On that note, I'll leave you with my best wishes for the week. Until next time, ciao a tutti da Tom Padula from TomPadulaTV on YouTube and, of course, Insegna Booksellers. So don't forget insegna.com and the blog section, okay, for this particular podcast series. Ciao.